Hey guys, welcome back. So this is part 4. The mockup is all done. So let's start refining this one. I think what I will start with is like, I will make this whole body like a little smaller, because if you look at Crabby, I feel like I did this like way too high, right? This is much better. And then we just alt click on the eyes, click on R to get this gizmo, and then just move it down. That looks good. All right. Move brush to move it a little bit forward. Cool. So this is where we'll start from. So we created like different groups for his hands. And I think we'll do the same for the body, because right now the teeth are like attached and it's very, very hard to sculpt like this area. And this is what I actually do a lot when I have, when I'm sculpting the jaw, that I actually detach it. Well, right here, it's like upper, lower body. That's also the jaw. But I think this will be like very, very helpful to sculpt like this whole mouth area. Okay, so let's alt click on the object, click on solo to isolate it. And then what we will do, make our brush size smaller, and then draw a mask. This like bottom part, like so. It can be like very rough. Doesn't have to be too detailed. All right. And then when we mask an area, and we click not only Control to mask, but Control Alt, we subtract from the mask. Can do the same here. And if you look closely, when I press Control, you see that there's a little plus right to the cursor, right? Plus mask. And if we push Alt as well, it says minus mask. So that's what we'll do. We'll invert it. This also works if you press Control and then draw this mask like from the canvas. So you get this kind of rectangle. And when you press Alt, this rectangle turns white, and it would delete the masking in this area. But this is not what we want. We go back with Control Z. This looks good. So what we can do now is apply a polygroup to this masked area. So when we press Shift F to see like the polygroup, we see it's like all red. And if we press Control W, this masked area gets its own kind of polygroup. And then we can apply the same trick with dynamesh we did for the claws. So this is what we'll do. Because we want to sculpt on this thing, we also will increase the resolution to get more polygons. So let's do like 128, activate groups. And now activate dynamesh. So just Control, click and drag on the canvas and release. Ooh. And now these two parts have been separated. So now if we smooth this kind of area, yes. We see it much better. Nice. Dynamesh again to get like softer edges. I just used a smooth brush to clean it up. And now, if we use like the Move Topological brush with Alt 2, can move the teeth apart. Or in general, treat like upper lip, lower lip, like differently. And this starts to look much better. Looks kind of funny. Okay, I think you have even more control if we actually split this up. So we have like two different objects. So if we press Shift F, we see, okay, they both have a different polygroup. And if we go into our subtool palette, down here we have the split palette and then the group split. I don't know, do I have this in my, yeah, I also have this in my menu. So you can just press Alt-A, then group split. And this is an undoable operation, so we have to say that we really want to do it. Okay. And now we have not deleted the other group. It's just invisible because solo is still turned on. But now we have like upper and lower body as separate subtools. So this will really help sculpting Crabby further. And you already see like how much this has done, right? This looks already like so much better. We have all these nice shadows being casted here and the highlights being cut up here. So this already looks like really, really cool. All right. So let's do the same for the legs and split up the legs. So let's click on the legs, isolate them. And now I'll show you something new. You've learned about masking and how to apply polygroups with masking, but there's another tool that's very, very powerful inside of ZBrush, and that's visibility. If you press Ctrl-Shift, you see that on the left side, the selection brush gets activated. So with Control, it's the mask brush. With Ctrl-Shift, it's a select rectangle brush. And with this brush, we can like draw a rectangle, and you see that it's kind of a green area. And what this one will do is it will hide everything else except everything in this green area. Really, really cool. This also helps while modeling, because you can pick the part you want to sculpt on and then just make everything else invisible. So this is how you create, or how you pick which kind of area you want to look at. If you want to invert it, you just click Ctrl-Shift and then drag on the canvas. Now it's inverted. You can do this over and over again to switch between those two selections. And if you want to see everything again, you just press Ctrl-Shift and click on the canvas to bring it all back. All right. So let's say we just want to work on these front legs. We press Ctrl-Shift, drag this rectangle out, and now we have isolated these two. Now we can continue sculpting on them. Invert it with just a drag and bring it back with Ctrl-Shift, click. Now we see them all. So let's say we want to isolate this one. This might get a little harder, right? Because there's like other parts. We even got like a few polygons of like the last legs. So let's bring the visibility back. Of course, we could move our camera. And now we can isolate this leg. Okay, this works, but there's a better way to do it, because they are different selection brushes and you can access them with Alt-S in my menu. There you see we have like this select rectangle down here and also select lasso. And I think I use select lasso like most of the time because I just like how it works. And when you do that, ZBrush will ask you if you really want to switch, because from now on, this will be your active selection brush. From now on, every time you press Ctrl-Shift, you will use the select lasso instead of the select rectangle. This is where I get this notification. So now when I press Ctrl-Shift, I see that it's the select lasso tool that's now active, or select lasso brush. So let's press Ctrl-Shift, select lasso is active. And now what we can do, we can just draw the area we want to see. Nice. And this brush works just the same, right? If we press Ctrl Shift and drag on the canvas, it will invert it. And if we press Ctrl Shift and click on the canvas, we will get it all back. When we use the masking brush, I said that it's possible while using it to press Alt and it inverted the effect. This is also the same for visibility. So if I draw this kind of shape with a select lasso and then press Alt, it turns red. And then I can hide just this one part. And this way it's like just super nice to work with. It's super fast. You can isolate whatever you want. Actually looks kind of creepy when you switch it this way. So let's bring it all back with Ctrl Shift and click. All right. Now that we know how to use like visibility, we can use this to our advantage. What I want to do is I want to split these legs up so we have all these kind of separate parts. Because when we look at Crabby, like these, I guess arms and legs, we always have like these little black lines separating, like the separation lines between everything. So this is why I want to split this up. And we can mirror this over later. So what we do now is we just make a selection with Ctrl Shift, then press Alt, and now it's hidden. And I will actually delete now these hidden parts. And this is in my menu with Alt A. And then down here, you have delete hidden. And now I've just deleted this part. You see, when I now press Ctrl Shift and click, I can't bring it back anymore because it has been deleted. All right. And when we created these legs, I actually just created the first leg and then cloned it, right? So we don't even need those legs as well. So press Ctrl Shift and then draw a selection, invert it. And now we delete these hidden legs as well. Right now they're still there. With Ctrl Shift and drag, we can invert the selection, but we actually want to delete these legs. So let's press Alt A, go down here and press delete hidden. Nice. So all we're left with is this one front leg. And I think the resolution is quite low. So I'll increase it to 128 as well, because we see all the polygons, right? And I want to have some more topology or some more polygons to work with. So we'll just do a dynamesh really quick. This did not work because dynamesh is not activated. Let's activate it. And now we have like more polygons to work with. Okay. Now what we want to do is we want to apply different polygroups to these parts of the leg. Let me actually bring my brush back because I really like to use it. Okay, so what we want to do is like isolate this part, and this part. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4 different parts. I think it's like about the same. We have like this little part down here, then it goes up, separated, separated, separated. So it's like 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. So what I'll do now is I'll go to polyframe mode with Shift F so we can see the polygroup. And now I'll draw a selection with Ctrl Shift for this middle part here. And now I can only see this part. And now we can give it its own polygroup by pressing Ctrl W. It's the same for masking. If you have an active mask, you can press Ctrl W to apply a polygroup, but it's the same for visibility. So now if we press Ctrl Shift and click, bring everything else back, you see that we have created a new polygroup. So I will do the same for this last piece of the leg here. Just press Ctrl Shift, draw a mask, nice. Control W to give it its own mask, its own polygroup. Bring it back with Control Shift click, nice. So these polygroups look pretty much alike because they got about the same color, but they're actually different polygroups. We could even like give this a new one, but I'll do this in a second. So now we have 3 different polygroups. We can isolate a polygroup by Control Shift clicking on it. So when I press Control Shift and now I just click on this object here. Oh, I've clicked on an edge. Now I've like hidden the whole polygroup. So if I invert that now, you see that this is still like one polygroup. It got the same color, right? And this is how you also can check that these two are not the same polygroup. We can press Control Shift, click on it. Now invert it, and maybe we'll give it a different color. Let's just press Control W again. Yeah, this looks better. And then Control Shift click to bring it back. Now we see that it's really like 3 different colors. Okay, so what happened when I clicked on this polygroup? Let's make my brush a little bit smaller. So when I hold Control Shift and then I clicked here, I just turned off like a couple of polygons. So what happened? It's because I clicked on an edge. So this mode actually makes a difference. You can isolate poly loops, but if you click on a polygon or on a point, it will hide like the entire area. Okay. So what we do now is we Control Shift click on this polygroup because this has still like 2 different objects. And then we press Control Shift, invert the selection. And now we give this a new mask with Control W. You can just click it a few times to have a color you like. And I just did it so that we can see the difference better here. Okay. And now we just have to activate groups and dynamesh. Nice. And now we do the same thing as for the body. Just take the smooth brush and smooth out this whole area where they're separated. Nice. And now that they are like separate objects, we can use our Move Topological brush with Alt-2 and move these like individually, like a little closer together. Okay. Something weird happening. Buttons being pressed without me pressing buttons. Is everything back to normal? Okay. Happened again. What? Why is it activating again? Something weird happened. So I go back to draw mode. I rotate it. And as soon as I lock it, this is weird. Have I pressed some kind of weird combination I did not know? Yeah, I will just restart ZBrush. So let me save here, do a quick save, and a save and restart because I have no clue what's happening right now. Okay. Okay, this looks really good. And if we look a little closer at Crabby's arms and legs, you can see that these shapes are like a little, I don't know, they look a little like bones. You know, we have like this little thicker end. You see this here as well. And then the feet itself are like very pointy, but also like curved a little. So maybe we can add some curve and also add some thickness in these areas. Okay, let's do this. So now we can just use either our clay brush or our standard brush. I will use the standard brush here. And just go in and add like a little thickness here. Same for the end. Same here. Could also use like the clay brush. We just want to add some thickness here. Okay. And I also wanted to add like a little curve. So I take the move brush and just add a little curve in here. And when I choose the size for the move brush, I think this is really interesting. You see that when I have chosen the size for the move brush, I actually hovered over this part. And then I picked the size of the brush that was about the size I wanted to move, right? So if I make it too small, I'll just move like this little area here. But if I make it like cover this whole part, then I add this kind of bend to like the whole object. So this is why I hovered over, adjust my size, and then I do like this little transformation here. Okay. I think this looks good. And I also make it a little like thinner. That looks good. All right. Now let's sculpt this like a little further. Let's take the clay, a little smaller here. And with Alt pressed, I'll just cut away from the side so it gets like what is kind of bone feeling. This already looks like much better. You see like how this light is getting caught up here. So what you basically do when you're sculpting is you manipulate light and shadow. So right now, if you look at this part, the light hits the surface like very, very equally. This is also a reason why I also look like the object from all angles. You see that this front part and this back part, like the front part looks like so much more interesting because we have like different values. You know, here's like a little shadow being cast here because it's like moving in. So sculpting is basically manipulating light. So let's do the same here. Carve away with like Alt being pressed. I'll do the same for the bottom. It's very, very easy, not getting like too much into detail. We could go into like more detail by like increasing the dynamesh resolution, but I think I want to stay at 128. For the first part, maybe we go higher later on, but I think now it's perfectly fine. We could actually do the same here. Oh yeah. Looks good to me. So let's turn off the solo mode and see what that looks like. Yeah, it looks good. This is also a way to decide like how high you go on the resolution for an object. Like for later on, now that you see the entire object, you can see, okay, my rendering will be like about this size. This is like enough detail. Does it look good? Or do I see like all the polygons? And you see that's at this level where we don't see the polygons. If we make it like really, really big, we would start to see them. But if we zoom out, actually looks okay. So I don't think we have to go like much higher for the legs. Okay. So let's go into our transformation mode by hitting E, R, or W. And now our gizmo is located down here. And we could, use these buttons to like go to unmask center again and also reset the mesh rotation. But now our whole object rotated with it. So if we press like Alt while doing it, you see that this kind of lock gets unlocked. And when this lock is unlocked, we can make changes without affecting the object. So when I click Alt, then click off Reset Orientation, it will be reset without moving the object. Same for, now I could move it here, but what I want to do is I want to put the center of the gizmo to where the leg is beginning. So again, I'll press Alt. Now this kind of lock turns on, and now I can move the gizmo without affecting the object. I'll just move it over. All right. So now I can move the leg, but I'll clone it. So we use the trick from before. We press Control or Command, and now we move it down. And now because the gizmo is placed over here, we can just rotate it a little. Press Control again. Actually, what I'll do here, I will scale it up just a bit. Then Control, Move, scale it down just a bit. Rotate it down. Control, Move for the back legs, scale down, and rotate. This looks good. So I clear the mask by just clicking on Control and then draw a mask on the canvas. Mask cleared. And now the legs have different heights, so they don't all end up here. So I'll activate the floor and also deactivate dynamic perspective, because right now we see everything in perspective, but I want to see it like in an orthographic view. So I turn that off, and now I can actually see if the legs are at the same height. So I take my move brush and just position like this back leg how I want it to be. Oof. The deformation was much too strong, so I make my brush bigger and then move it up. Okay. I can make my brush smaller and just make sure that this leg ends up in this line. Okay. So I also like the curve we had earlier, so I'll make this like bigger. And then have this like fall off to the end. All right, I like it. If we would use the move topological now, we would move like each individual part, but we don't want that. So turn off the floor, turn off dynamic perspective again if you want. Okay, I like it. So let's mirror that over with like Alt-A and mirror and weld. Nice. Yeah, this is starting to come together nicely. Okay. So let's do the same for the arms because it's pretty much the same workflow. And I think repetition really helps when learning. So let's Alt click on the object to select it. And then we click on solo. But before that, I just want to check like very quickly, because I'm getting confused here. I think I will use the inflate brush to make this thicker, because his arms just have like two parts. They seem quite long, right? Let's move them inwards a little. I'm just moving like one side because I forgot to turn off symmetry. So what do I do if I want to have all this kind of changes I made to this side being applied to the other side? I could use mirror and weld. So press Alt-A, mirror and weld. Now this side looks like the other side, so it's the opposite of what I wanted. But I can press Ctrl-Z and go back. And this is why I have these buttons like right next to each other. We just click mirror. Now the arm we resculpted is on the left side. And then we click mirror and weld. And now we have it on the right as well. Looks good to me. So let's go into solo mode and do the same as before. Do we create like 2 parts or 3 parts? Let's make it 3. But we will first remove one side because we can mirror it over anyway. Delete hidden. Okay, cool. Now just isolate this part, give it its own polygroup by hitting Control W. Bring it back, Control Shift click. Now isolate this polygroup by Control Shift clicking onto it. Then we hide this front part by Control Shift clicking and dragging. And now we press Alt. Give this another polygroup as well. Control W. Control Shift click to bring it all back. Nice. Now let's increase the resolution to 128, activate groups, and dynamesh. So you see how super effective this workflow is. And once I know that in the beginning, this whole masking and selection seems like really weird. But you just have to do it over and over and over again. Like repetition is the mother of skill here. You just have to do it over and over, and then you don't think about it anymore. Okay. Dynamesh again. Smooth, dynamesh again. I don't want these edges. And I'll just take the standard brush and do pretty much the same as for the legs. You know, just make it a little thicker at the end. You see how quick and dirty I do this here. Okay. Ah, yeah, we could also use our clay brush again with Alt pressed to make this thing like more interesting and not just round. Very quick and dirty. All right. Now we just mirror and weld, and we got them both. Nice. So I just activated symmetry by pressing X and moved it a little bit inwards. Okay, I think that's cool. So I think now it's time to really work on the body and the upper body and lower body. So what do we start with? Let's pick the upper body, isolated. Okay. Let's smooth this out. I use the clay brush to add some more in here. Okay. So what I want to do is like these thingies up here, these antennas or whatever they are. They look a little weird. And at first I'll do also like a mirror and weld here because they look different, right? So we just do mirror and weld, and now they look the same. So I just a move brush. Now they're like super straight, maybe give them a little curve as well. Then I'll smooth the bag. You know, when I'm using dynamesh, I'm doing changes, and when I feel like I've done a lot of changes in a certain area, I just re-dynamesh by clicking Control and dragging so that the whole mesh gets updated. Okay. So let's use the standard brush and just go along the side once. Smooth it out a little. Okay, I think this looks good. You could also do maybe the same with like Alt pressed. Smooth that out. And I don't know, these still seem weird, but maybe what we can do is add like more of them back here. Maybe this is too big. Let's decrease the size, something like that. Then we invert our mask by control-clicking on the canvas. Get our move brush out, make it really big, and then we just move that away. Dynamesh it. And use the smooth brush again. I think this already looks better. I know it's not the original design, but I know. These just seemed, you know, some stuff works well in an illustration and it doesn't work that well in 3D. And this is how I feel about those. Like when these antennas are up here all alone, there's like so much space where nothing is happening. So we have to decide and add some interest in here. Same for the eye area, right? Now these eyes are like going upwards. Maybe we could add some interest and like carve in here. So it really feels like, you know, that they like work together more. If we like maybe bring this back. I think you can add a lot of realism to your sculpt when it feels like that, like the different subtools or parts are working together, right? So for example, what I've just done is I made this back part actually look like it was meant to look this way. It was because I carved in there, like much stronger. So it looks like these parts really are more dependent on each other. Maybe that's a little too strong, but I think you get the idea. Okay. Yeah, I think especially now that I think this works like much better. For me, it feels, especially like from this angle, a little too much like a box. I like that it's like this kind of box shape we have here, but from the side, I feel like we could maybe use the move brush and move that in so that this effect doesn't get like too obvious. He can look like a box from the front, but after that, I think we can like smooth this whole area here. See, so that this effect is not as strong anymore. Yeah, I like that. I was thinking about, you know, making or like changing the mouth, but I actually like that he's like smiling and it looks he looks so happy. La la la. Nom 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 nom. This looks super funny. I think yeah, I'll just leave it like that. Okay, it's just too good. All right. So what I'll do now is I'll just add some kind of pattern or so to the top. Just use like the clay brush, just break it up a little so that it doesn't all look like the same, right? Because right now it's like I don't know, all very, very flat. This kind of no, I like this. This kind of looks like a nose here. Maybe it goes inwards here. Subtracting. I'll carve away, like on the inside, that actually feels more like lips. To have like a better shadow cast in here. You see it getting darker already. Yeah, I like how that looks like. And this is like an example, again, what I was trying to explain for the eyes. Now that we have like these two tools, like the teeth, let's isolate this part and make it like smooth it down a little. We can make this upper part like react to it. Right now it looks very clean, and this is also like an advantage of like splitting it all up. Right now we just move it back, and to make this effect like even stronger, we sculpt like on top of it, so it feels like it got like pushed back, you know, even though this is all like hard shell. Smooth this area. See, it's subtle, but I think it works really, really well. Now he's even more looking like he's smiling, and I like it. He's a happy dude. Okay. So I use my clay brush again and just add some like variation to the surface. There's no like big plan behind it. I just don't want to look at like all flat. So just add some detail and lose the smooth again. You see it's like, it's simply not like perfectly flat. And that's all I want here. Nothing like too fancy. Maybe we like kind of follow this line here. So it goes like all the way to the back. Yeah, this works. I think this works really well. And I add some blobs to this side. Okay. So I think this already added like a lot of realism to the sculpt, and I like it. So let's focus on the bottom part. And actually, when I sculpt the bottom part now, I want to see the top. So what I'll do now is, instead of like going into the solo mode, I'll just go into my subtools and click on this eye next to all the subtools that I don't want to see anymore. I like the eyes. I'll keep the eyes. And now we like sculpt here. So now this looks like very flat. This area catches like a lot of light, and it's kind of cool. But I think we can also like smoothen this out. That would look even better. You can even like take if you have a hard edge like here. Let's isolate this for a second. You can also like take the clay brush with Alt and then like carve this edge away, then smooth, and now you have like this very smooth fall off here. Let's see how that looks like. Okay, so this again is all like too flat, right? I think we have to separate this area a little so that this is the mouth and this is like these teeth, or like lip and teeth. So let's go to the clay brush. And like give these teeth like some more volume. Same for the lower lip. Actually sculpting this lip, right? Is this like too much? Does it look like too human? Or is it okay? I'm just switching between like applying volume and then hitting Alt in between to subtract. And you can see it here again. I think this is like a very good example. Like what I said earlier, that when you sculpt, you're always manipulating light and you want to make it like the surface interesting, right? So when I carve away down here, you see that the shadow that is being cast under the lip is like getting stronger and stronger. And this is actually like a good thing because it adds like visual interest, right? Because the shadow cast here is stronger. But I feel like it's too strong and it gets like too much attention. So this is why I'll get rid of it. But I think this is like very important to think about while you're sculpting. You're always manipulating light. And the more diverse your whole sculpt is, the better it will look later when you actually render it and put like different light sources. Okay. So overall, I want this bottom part to be different from the top part because A, it got a different texture, it got a different color. So I think this top part will become like, we'll add like a little surface details here. And I want this bottom part to look more like a hard shell or like a flat surface or flatter surface. So let's sculpt the area here. Clay brush again. And I'll add like kind of little holes exactly where all of my legs start. Again, right, it will look like these kind of parts of the body interact with each other. So they're not simply like intersecting. So when I show where my legs are, then I move this into position, and you see that it seems like this really like works together. We can even like emphasize even more. I don't know. But I think this looks weird, and it's not what we want for a crab. So I'll make this fall off like much smoother. Let's look at the arms like briefly. Okay. So I think this looks good. And I think this is also like a good time to introduce you to a new brush. And it's one of my favorite brushes. Let me take a sip here. Okay. And I think from all the brushes we've used so far, like standard and move and clay, this is the first one that has its own alpha. If you press 4, you will have the damn standard or Damien standard. I think the guy who created this called it Damien, but I'm not sure. This brush was created like ages ago and posted onto the forums, and I think at some point ZBrush made it a standard brush. And you actually see that this one has an alpha. So what does that mean? For example, if we take our standard brush, it will have like this classic fall off. And if we pick like a square shape here, then you see that now my brush looks very, very different. You see that I on every kind of stroke iteration, this shape is applied, which is really, really cool. So alphas are very, very powerful to change brushes and sculpting in general. But we will not get into alphas too much, but I will show you a really cool trick when we sculpt. Yeah, when we do like surface details later on. Okay, but let's go back to the Damien standard because it has this kind of alpha. So what does this do or say? Because the other alpha we had was like plain white, but this obviously has like a fall off. So when I use this damn standard brush, we will have this little like cut, which is really, really cool. Looks like a skin fold or like a separation of two objects. You can use this brush like for so many things. It's crazy cool. And this is also the fall off we see here. Like the more white, the more intensity it has, right? So this is why this brush looks like this. Or with like subtract added, and this is one of the brushes where subtract mode is the default mode, you have the opposite. So this is like white fall off to black. This is why it looks like this. Okay. So when we press Alt, we get like this little, I think this is a really, really cool brush to like also highlight edges. If we want this edge to be sharper, we can use the damn standard, press Alt, and now we get these sharper edge, right? I just love this brush so much. It's super cool. This actually looks kind of good. And maybe we use that. But what I wanted to do with this brush initially was like split this whole like area up a little. Like part of, of a shell. But when using this brush, I mean, we can dynamesh it again. Does it look better now? A little. It's the 6-pack crab. Yeah. 8-pack crab. Woohoo! I think we have to increase the resolution for this brush to look good because I really like this. If we look at crabs, they have like this shell. That just looks better. I think we go higher. When I do dynamesh resolution, I usually always double the amount. So I start with 32, go to 64, 128, and then to 56. Let's do this again. Maybe before we apply the brush to 56. All right. That image was not applied. Yeah, now you see how good this looks. Then you can put emphasis on an edge. Oh yeah, this looks kind of cool. All right. So what I'm doing now, I'm like looking at Crab reference, but Crabby has such a like weird shape. So we just have to make up one of our own. So I'll just like separate these parts. Like so. Oh, this looks like a face. I don't want that. Yeah, let's not be like too crazy about it. I don't want to spend like hours sculpting here. This is tutorial. No space for perfectionism. All right. Then I just put some emphasis on like the lower edge. With Alt pressed, and you can already see like how much detail you can create with just this brush. It's crazy. All right, I think this is cool and enough. Maybe you won't see like most of it, but I just wanted to show it to you. All right. I think this is okay. Let's get all our parts back and see what it looks like. This is coming together, but I don't like this separation here, so I just sculpt over it. I think there's also something we can do for the bottom part, like we did for the top. Just use the standard brush. Put some emphasis on this like outer edge. Invert it. And just to make it look more interesting. Not all the same. Okay. So now let's work on the class. I think we increased the resolution. 28. Now you have to make a little change to the surface and then apply it again. Same here. I think I have to do that again. It was probably too fast. So when you have different polygroups and you just click and make like a change to like one polygroup and then apply dynamesh, it will leave like the other polygroup alone. So we also have to like click here or perform some sculpting and then dynamesh so that it can be applied. All right. So I think let's not spend like too much time on this. We'll do the same like for the top. Just take like the clay brush and add some interest. Or maybe like the standard brush, smaller, just to have some changes. And I'll also like isolate it, and we do not need to see both. So I will hide one so I can focus more on like drawing up here. I just want to keep these edges here. So this is why I'm like drawing over them with the standard brush. Same down here. I want to keep them. They look a little unnatural, but I think it works like really well because this is like, I'm changing a lot of stuff about Crabby, but I'm not changing the silhouette like too much. Like from the side, I did it with the back part, okay, but I think the claws are like very important and I want to keep them that way. Okay. Now let's take the clay and do the same, just like very quick and dirty. maybe a little bigger. You see how messy I am here, just like switching between inverted and normal brush, and then like smooth in the area. So just have like some surface like breakup. I think that's enough. You don't want to spend like too much time on it. But you see like how many shadows are getting cast here inside of the object, so it looks like much more interesting. Okay. So now we will actually like delete hidden because we don't need the other claw. We want to mirror and weld it anyway. This looks good. This is a good example. So now when I'm moving my camera, the solo button gets activated, and it's because I accidentally clicked on dynamic down here. So we just turn it off and now everything's back to normal. I like that he's smiling at me the whole time. It makes me smile as well. All right, this looks good. And I think now we get like to this stage where we add some final details. So let's click on this upper part here. And yeah, I think we could start. Yeah, let's start with this part. Maybe isolated. Oh, I think I make an extra chapter for the surface details because this part was very long already. So surface details, and next part. See ya.